I say, what ho, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say with the recent announcement and release of Mewtwo for Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS, we are now discussing here the new fighters, tier placing and matchups. That's right, we are talking here at the pro level of gameplay, how he stacks up against the other fighters on the roster.
We most certainly are, yes indeed. A lot of people awfully excited about Mewtwo, and a lot of hype about his appearance now in Smash Bros.
That's right.
But how is he standing up? How's he performing out there in the field with the rest of the characters out there?
That's right. Now, of course, we have to firstly bear in mind we are talking very early days here at the moment. There's nothing final yet, and of course, there is actually no officially recognised tier list for Smash Bros. As yet. So, of course, we are still talking very much in the early phases of the game, particularly with regard to Mewtwo. But we can say that already shall we say, preliminary placing for Mewtwo has emerged on the Super Smash Bros. Tier list, according to what the community thinks.
That most certainly has, yes indeed. According to what they think, as you said, early days yet, but nevertheless they've given him a placing out of, 49 odd fighters there.
49 fighters.
Indeed, and they have put him in at number 10.
Number 10?
Well, number 10, it's very, very high now. I don't know what chaps and chapettes out there think about this.
Well...
but we certainly we both played him, haven't we? And we gave him a try there.
Yes.
But number 10 is very, well, shall we say...
controversial, I think.
Controversial, I think, yes. Perhaps a little tad too much.
So we have here this fighter, Mewtwo. Now, if you ask me, Mewtwo, his appearance in this particular version of Smash Bros. Is actually quite a strong one. I do believe he is much better than his old Melee version. However, something tells me he's not quite top-tier material, at least not just yet. This may be an example of what we're seeing. It could be some early hype from the fans here, perhaps saying, oh, it's Mewtwo, this is absolutely great, he's number 10, but of course, he may not necessarily be number 10 on the tier list. So
yes,
just
exactly,
to put that into context and perspective there, he's just below Zero Suit Samus, a powerful character in the game, and just above Mario on the tier list. Captain Falcon, meanwhile, is in at number 6, and Rosalina currently has pole position. So that's where we're looking at Mewtwo. Diddy Kong, meanwhile, just as a side note of interest, has plummeted to number 19 after his nerf. So we're seeing some new updates to the tier list here.
We are, yes indeed. That's an interesting point. We have to just surely chip that in in this report video here.
That's right.
Diddy Kong, who was at number 1 since the update, of course, we reported on that earlier, the update, and they're nerfing Diddy Kong.
Yes.
They put him down to 19 on his particular scoreboard.
But just getting back to Mewtwo here, yes. We have here a positioning for the Pokemon at number 10.
Yes.
Now we have to ask ourselves, does he belong at such a high place on the tier list? Now we have to, in order to find out the answer to that question, we have to take a look at his moves and what he's capable of in combat. Now, with my experience with Mewtwo so far, I think he's definitely fun to play as. There's no question about that. He has some strong moves like his up smash and his down smash. He also has some useful killing moves here and there. I don't think he is necessarily all that fast, and I have noticed he's very light and floaty. Okay.
Yes.
He's not, for example, like Ganondorf, who hits like a sack of hammers and falls like one too. He's actually, his attacks are quite powerful. I mean, they've got some definite punch behind them, but he's, shall we say, he's quite easy to knock away, and he has this overall light and floaty feel about him, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, he has a lighty, floaty sort of feel, as you say, about him, yes, indeed. I mean, the actual character itself and the way it's been implemented within the game, I think, having played it, is rather good. They've done a good job of him.
Certainly.
His moves are solid, sound, and workable. There's no question about that. But how they stand up against other characters and actually, putting him in at number 10 is another thing. Now, I agree with you, rather floaty. He's on the slower side. He's not a faster character.
That's a good point.
And of course, Diddy and some of the ones up there at the top at the moment, just having a quick look at the tier here, as we see, we've got some gameplay of him at the moment, I believe, going.
Yes.
But just at the top there, we've got people like Rosalina, Sheik, of course, who is very quick, Yoshi, who's quite fast, and Pikachu is also rather quick.
That's right. Of course, we've got a slow fighter there in the form of Lucario, currently in at number 7. However, he does, of course, have that powerful aura effect, which is very useful. Now, of interest here is, in fact, since we're talking floaty and light characters, of course, who other than Auntie Rosalina, as she is known, is in fact a very floaty character. Now, of course, Mewtwo is also floaty, so I don't know, perhaps this overall floaty quality is not necessarily all that bad.
It might not be, no, he has that, we said that, of course, because he definitely has that attribute,
yes.
But of course, it's not necessarily a negative thing.
Right.
Maybe they're more difficult to hit, I don't know. But
Okay.
he's on the slower side, but I just think, just moving on to his B move there.
Yes, his B moves.
Yes, indeed. The Shadow Ball, a charge up and release situation here, releases a large bluish sort of ball of energy there.
It does.
Effective, of course, a ranged weapon, very effective, and of course you don't have to charge it up, you can just keep firing.
You can do. Now, the charge function of that particular move, Shadow Ball, if you ask me, is very powerful. Actually, when fully charged, it does a whopping 25% damage. That is not to be sniffed at. Of course, it doesn't possess the same knockback as moves like Samus's Charge Shot, for example, but it can rack up damage quite shockingly fast. It can be stored and used when the opponent least expects it. Then, of course, his side B move, Confusion. Okay, now, Confusion in Melee was notoriously quite useless. This time, it's actually a little bit better. You can catch foes off guard with that. If they're approaching you from below, you can use Confusion if you're standing on a platform and send them spinning in mid-air. You can also disrupt their projectiles as well with this move now, of course, which makes it rather more handy than it was back in the old days. But still, if you ask me, it's overall not a particularly useful move.
No, indeed, no, it has its usefulness, as you say, as does also, of course, the Ball of Energy. I think that's quite a good one myself.
The Shadow Ball is good.
The Shadow Ball is a good strategic weapon that can be used both long range and shorter as well.
It can.
And as you say, a massive, massive whack there if you get the full charge and hit them right in the head.
25% indeed, very powerful. But of course, Confusion not quite so good, although better than it was, definitely for sure. And then, of course, we have Disable here. Now, that makes the opponent dizzy for a split second, a very brief moment, if eye contact is made when you're using the move. Of course, using this move is always a bit of a risk because it does leave you briefly open. If you do hit the opponent, however, you get about under a second or so to get a quick smash attack there, basically, and take advantage of the opening you've created. Now, as I say there, you have to be very fast once you've launched Disable to take advantage of it, because it's only very, very brief and they come back to their senses straight away.
Yes, indeed, that's right. So there's one there. Once again, the rather strategic move. But you have to be careful with it.
You do. I'm leaning towards quite situational there, once again, a bit like Confusion. Not necessarily all that reliable. I mean, for example, other characters have much more reliable go-to moves on the down B. For example, as Captain Falcon, I use Falcon Kick, or in Gandalf, the Gan Kick, as it's known quite often. Both quite useful. But Disable, as I say, very much a situational move there.
Well, yes, indeed. Now, of course, looking then at the up B move, this is the teleport.
That's right.
Of course, we have other teleporters such as Palutena and Zelda, I believe.
That's right.
And of course, now the teleport, I think, is a good move, and it's well implemented with Mewtwo. I think it's perhaps a little more easier to effect than a couple of the other characters.
Easier to use.
Anyway. Easier to use, I think, yes.
Right.
And it is an effective move to play with the player, or the other player's head.
Okay, yes, indeed. You can indeed use the teleport for mind games. Of course, Palutena, Zelda, Sheik, and other characters can also do that. Of course, in the case of Sheik and Zelda, though, the teleport actually causes damage, whereas Palutena's and Mewtwo's teleports don't cause damage, okay? So if you use those, you have to be aware of the fact that the opponent could take advantage of the opening you've given them, because, of course, you have a cooldown time with no damage caused there. However, as Bertie has said just now, it can be used to mind game the opponent because they don't necessarily know where you're going to land.
Most certainly not, no. So just looking at those there and seeing what sort of weapons he's got in his bag, we've got ranged weapons with the Shadow Ball, we've got the Confusion, a handy thing, we've got the Disable and the Teleport.
The special moves, yes.
The special moves. So he's got quite a lot there to use. And of course, let's have a quick look, or a quick think, or perhaps talk there, about his smash moves.
His smash attacks, yes, of course, they are quite handy. I think his perhaps one of his most useful smash moves there is the up smash, quite useful for charging in and busting it out, as it were, and sending them flying off into the stratosphere. His side smash is okay, pretty good knockback on that, not spectacular, but it's quite workable, it's handy. I think perhaps Gandalf has a far superior one as to other heavy hitters, but Mewtwo's one is not bad. His down smash is also quite satisfyingly powerful, I think.
Most certainly, and he's also got his other sort of standard moves there. I believe it's on the down A, I think.
Down A,
where he sort of spins with his tail. Now, I found that to be quite effective.
Yes.
It doesn't do an awful lot of damage, but he's got a jolly good range on it, so you can hit people quite a way away with that spin sort of attack with his tail there.
Yes, you can do. He has fairly good tilts and indeed good range on those tilts, as Bertie has said. Now, of course, we have to also take a look here, as part of his tier list evaluation, at the matchups he has against the other characters in the game. I mean, just how does he do? Well, apparently there's been some voting going on, and unsurprisingly, people seem to think his best matchup is against Donkey Kong, the poor chap. He never catches a break, does he?
He doesn't. Well, Donkey Kong, yes, not exactly the highest on the tier list.
No, more like the lowest, actually.
Well, I think it's very, very low indeed. Yes, indeed. So that's an interesting one to choose.
Interestingly, it seems that people believe Mewtwo has an advantage against powerful characters like Lucina, Diddy Kong, Marth, and others, and even Lucario, it seems here. Now, again, this may just be an example of people getting a bit overexcited about Mewtwo. I'm not entirely sure, and time will tell us for sure. Of course, we have here on the unfavourable side of of things, that is to say where the other fighter has an advantage, the consensus so far seems to be that Sheik is his least favourable matchup, followed by Captain Falcon, Rosalina and other such heavy hitters, and in there also is Fox, surprisingly.
Interesting, yes. I'm just looking at that now, just and thinking about it. We've got in there Sheik, as you say, Captain Falcon. We've got Zero Suit Samus, Sonic. Now, all of those are fast characters.
Yes.
Mario, well, he's not particularly fast, but he's not bad.
He's quite a strong character this time.
Greninja was also fairly fast, as I remember.
He needs enough.
Yes, indeed, I think so. But also, you see, they seem to be rather faster characters.
Yes.
Although they have put Rosalina in there as one of the ones that, he doesn't get on too well with.
That's right, of course, and just on the mostly even side of things, apparently people are saying such as Shulk and Villager for that particular bracket. So overall, though, people seem to be saying here, the general consensus goes that Mewtwo has mostly either favourable or even matchups, with just 11 unfavourable ones. So there you are.
Well, yes, certainly, and to come in at number 10, even though it may be just early excitement from some players out there, is something, I think, for the whole community to think about. He's obviously a character that is assumed or presumed to be rather formidable, and so therefore we should be looking at this character a lot, I think, in the coming months and weeks, I think.
My personal opinion on Mewtwo is that he is a solid fighter. He's not spectacular. Okay, there's nothing particularly amazing about his moves, but what he does do, he does it well. He has solid hitting and killing power. He's perhaps a bit on the light and floaty side, but a good fighter may be able to use that to their advantage, and certainly he is not to be underestimated. Again, he's not particularly outstanding. He doesn't particularly shine and sparkle in any given area, but he is very good at what he does, and he's a solid pick on any day of the week, if you ask me.
Most certainly, I think so, yes. So what do you chaps and chapettes, I believe, out there think about this? I mean, obviously, you may or may not have played him yet. I don't know how the DLC thing's going in different countries, etc. But what do you think about him?
Yes, indeed. If you had to ask me where do you think Mewtwo would go on the tier list, my guess would be I think he's mid to high tier, okay? I would put him in about number 20-ish, I suppose.
Well, I think I'm inclined to agree, actually. I think number 10 is a little bit too...
That's a bit too high, yes.
I think it's a little bit too high. I could be wrong, but I think sort of mid-range 20... certainly above the middle, is it?
Oh, yes, above the middle.
Above the middle.
Give or take a few, it's about 20, I think.
Yes, indeed, I think so. The chaps and chapettes who've played him may say something else in the comments or whatever.
Yes.
Let's see what they say, but I think that's roughly where he stands.
There you go, fellows. This has indeed been Game Chef and Bertie's evaluation of Mewtwo, the newest addition to Super Smash Bros., and his placing in the tier list along with some of his matchups against other characters. Again, as Bertie says there, do let us know what you think, for this is quite an exciting subject at this time. And of course, we'll be also looking forward to seeing how the future DLC characters like Lucas and the rumoured Roy and Ryu also fare in the tier list.
Almost certainly. Now, they're going to be very, very interesting indeed when they come out.
Where is Ryu going to place? That's going to be so fun, I say. But indeed, join us once more for more exciting Nintendo news. We look forward to seeing you then. Until then...